Hey guys, it's Emily, the Controversial Mom, and thanks for joining me again this week. If you're like me, you've spent the entire past week glued to your TV watching all things related to President Trump and his inauguration. It has been fascinating to watch. It's really interesting for me because you recognize the historical significance of everything that's happening. And I try to pull my son into the conversation. And of course, he's not interested, but I keep telling him how amazing it is and how historical it is and all of this. So it's been a really fun week, and I've very much enjoyed watching it, from the actual inauguration to, more importantly, all the executive orders that Trump has signed. He has signed, I think it's over 200 now. I kind of lost count because there's so many, but they're fascinating. They're dealing with gender ideology, which we very much need. It's dealing with offshore drilling, which again, we also very much need. Also dealing with pulling us out of the Paris Climate Accord and the WHO. And of course, on top of all these executive orders, we've also got confirmation hearings going on. I honestly have never watched or cared about confirmation hearings before until this year, and I find myself completely glued to my TV when these are going on. The one with Pete Hegseth was hysterical, and God bless his soul for dealing with so many of those crazy women. The one with Pam Bondi was good. She was fire on several of those questions. I loved it. Christine Ohm did an amazing job, and I can't even remember the rest of them that I watched, but I have been very much glued to my TV with all of this. And then, of course, the amazing thing we've seen in the past day or two is not just confirmation hearings, but also the swearing in of Marco Rubio as the new Secretary of State. And most importantly, with his being sworn in, he has signed a new directive, a new policy that says only the American flag can fly over American embassies across the country, or across the world rather. That seems like a common sense kind of thing, that a U.S. embassy would fly the U.S. flag, but here we are having to make a policy that actually states that. So it has been a historical few days, and we're just getting started. We are not even a full week into the Trump administration, and we are seeing amazing changes happening in our country. I know for me, that's just been exciting to watch because, as I've told you guys before, I've never really watched politics until Trump's first term. I honestly didn't even vote for Trump in the first term because I was just not really into politics. I thought Republican, Democrat, it doesn't matter. They all lie, cheat, and steal to get ahead. So why does it really matter? Nothing ever changes that much. But Trump changed my view on that because he came in and really just kind of did things his way. He didn't do it the presidential way, and he said what he thought, and he did exactly what he said he was going to do. So it was fascinating to watch him, and it really pulled me into the world of politics and helped me realize that really and truly things can be different. We actually can have an impact in our country if we elect the right people. And while Trump is very different, that's a good thing. He actually does what he's going to say, or he does what he says and says what he does. So Trump's just been really fascinating from that angle to watch. And of course, now he's doing all these amazing things, and he's building an administration that's also going to do amazing things. So I have really enjoyed the past week watching all of this. But with all of that being in the headlines, a lot of us have forgotten what's been happening in California. So California is essentially burning to the ground. It's really sad what's happening out there. And like I said, I've not been super focused on it in the past couple of weeks, or really the past week. So I went back and tried to refresh my brain on what is actually happening, because the fires are still ongoing. I think there's actually been a couple of new ones that started this week, much smaller, but still new ones. But it's a really sad story what's going on in California. So I didn't quite realize this. I guess I've assumed it, but I did confirm it. California is the most taxed state in the country, and in some cases, some of their cities are the most taxed cities, which is really not all that surprising because it's kind of crazy in California. But nonetheless, they are taxed like crazy in California, mostly because they're essentially a socialist state where they just give money out to everybody. In the past year or so, they have redirected millions of dollars to illegal immigrants for healthcare. And they have redirected about $500 million into DEI initiatives. So you can imagine, as California is burning, the fact that they have redirected all these funds to illegal health care and to DEI initiatives, they've clearly not prioritized the needs of the people, and they've not spent money in terms of fire department, hiring firefighters, ensuring that the infrastructure is there. So in the event of a natural disaster, they actually have fire hydrants and water available to put out fires. So it's a really bad situation in California in terms of what they've been doing financially over the past couple of years. Then on top of all of that, you've got the Los Angeles County Mayor, which is a gal named Karen Bass, who was elected, I think, in 2022. And she really barely won her election. I want to say it was like 53% of the vote. It wasn't a huge margin that she won by. But nonetheless, she won the mayor for LA County. One of the first things that she did when she became the mayor is she cut their local budget by $17 million. And I say budget, she cut the fire department's budget by $17 million. So as you can imagine now, looking back on that choice, a lot of people are or should be very angry. So she cuts $17 million out of the fire department's budget. And again, like the state, she redirects this money into DEI initiatives. She's very focused on DEI. So in addition to moving money to DEI programs, she also hired LA County's first ever female and LGBT fire chief. I can't remember the gal's name, but I can see her face right now. One of the first things that the fire chief did was hire an assistant chief who's also an LGBT activist. So your mayor is an LGBT activist who cares more about DEI than funding your fire department. You have a fire chief that is an LGBT activist that cares about DEI initiatives over funding and managing the department correctly. And she appoints a assistant chief that also focuses on DEI over everything else. Now, the assistant chief, it's very odd, interesting, sad, is actually in a recruiting video or a training video, I should say, within the department for the fire department or the firefighters. And in the video, she says two really concerning things. The first one she says is that when comparing herself to other firefighters, men firefighters, she makes the comment that in the event of fire, if she goes in and she finds your husband passed out on the floor, no, she cannot carry him out, but it's his fault for being there in the first place. So we're blaming men that potentially are passed out in a fire for being there and saying, it's not my fault, I can't carry you out, you shouldn't have been there in the first place. Then she goes on to talk about how if we're in a fire, if we're in those situations, we want a firefighter coming to us that looks like us, that resembles us, that we can relate to. So let me be really clear. I'm 5'0", I weigh 115 pounds. I am a single mom. In the event of a fire, I do not want anyone that looks like me coming in to help. If a female that's 5'0" runs in there to help me and my son, I'm just going to tell her, get out of my way, I got this. I want the biggest, strongest, burliest man running into my house and saying, I've got you, where's your son? And picking us both up and carrying us out. Why? Because I want somebody that's stronger than me to help me in the event that I'm in the middle of a burning building. I do not want anyone that looks like me coming in to help me. If I need someone like me, I'll just do it myself. So no, we don't want someone that looks like us coming in the middle of a burning building to rescue us. We want someone strong and capable, preferably alpha male, because again, I do like intoxicating masculinity. I want a strong man saving me and my son, not someone like me. But I digress. My point in all of this is, in LA County, California, they have failed their constituents terribly because they prioritize DEI over the safety and well-being of the people in the community. So why am I bringing all of this up in the middle of Alabama, where we're not burning to the ground, thank God? Unfortunately, we're freezing because it's crazy cold here. I bring this up because in 2025, which we are now in, we are in a very unique situation. In most municipalities across the state of Alabama, this is the year that we are going to re-elect our mayors and our councilmen and women. So in 2025, the vast majority of these elections come back up for re-election. A couple of them were in 24, but most of them are in 2025. So as we look at all the chaos that took place or is taking place in California right now, the people voted for a mayor and city council. Those people in turn appointed a chief of police and a fire chief. The fire chief then appointed her assistant fire chief, all of whom prioritized DEI over everything else. So we need to look internally at our local communities and determine, who do we want leading our communities? Do we want someone that's going to prioritize DEI, or do we want someone that's going to prioritize the safety and well-being of the people they serve? And I think most of us would agree with the latter. We want the people that are going to look at the situation and say, nope, we need $17 million in our fire budget because we need to make sure we have infrastructure in place, that fire hydrants work, that reservoirs are filled up. If we have reservoirs in Alabama, I don't even know. The point is, we want to ensure that we're electing the people to be our councilmen and women and our mayor that are going to hire the right people for these emergency management systems and situations, because we want to ensure the safety and well-being of ourselves and our children and our communities as a whole. So 2025 is upon us. It is now time for all of us to go do our homework. Go out and figure out which seats are coming open and for election in your area. Determine if the people that are currently in those seats are the ones you want to reelect. If they are, great. You need to get on board in helping those people get reelected. If it's people you disagree with that have very different morals and standards than you, then you've got homework to do. You've got to go find somebody to run for those seats and challenge them. Run yourself. I promise you, these positions are not as difficult as you think they are. But the important thing is, we're in 2025. You've got just a few months to figure this out. So go out there, figure out the seats that are coming open in your area, figure out who you want to support, if it's the current person or if it's somebody new. And if it's somebody new, go recruit the person that you want in those positions. Because we do not want Alabama turning into California, because we did not elect the right people in the beginning. So you have homework to do. If you have questions, as always, reach out and let me know. If you need help finding people to run for office, I will do everything I can to help, because we need to ensure that Alabama stays a conservative state. Thanks, guys, for joining. I'll see you next week.